Welcome. If you're tuning in, chances are you're an F-1 student, maybe nearing graduation, maybe just past it. It's a huge step, right?
Absolutely.
But it definitely brings up a lot of questions, especially if you're thinking, what's next? Can I stay, build a future here in the U.S.?
And that's precisely what we're going to get into today. We're navigating the U.S. immigration pathways specifically for F-1 grads looking to work or, well, live here permanently.
We're using a really solid white paper as our guide here. It really lays out the options.
Yeah, think of this as us trying to boil down the essentials for you, what you really need to grasp as you figure out those next steps.
Right. Our mission today is pretty straightforward. Give you a clear picture of the main routes. We'll break down the big difference between temporary stays and permanent residency.
And highlight the key things to think about without, drowning you in jargon.
Exactly. So let's dive in.
Okay, so first things first. You really need to understand the basic difference between non-immigrant and immigrant visas. Your F-1 visa, that's a classic non-immigrant visa. It lets you be here for a specific reason, studying, and for a set time.
Makes sense. And after graduation, there are other non-immigrant visas that often come up, right? Like OPT.
Optional practical training.
Which is basically tied to your F-1 status, letting you work for a bit.
Exactly. Then you've got the H-1B, the comma work visa.
And we'll definitely talk more about that one.
And even things like the E-2 investor visa for some folks. But the key thing with these non-immigrant ones, they have end dates. They don't automatically, turn into permanent residency.
Although the H-1B has that dual intent thing.
It does, yeah. We'll unpack that. It's an important exception.
Okay.
And then on the other side, you have the immigrant visas. These are the ones aiming for permanent residency, the green card.
Letting you live and work here permanently?
Right. And the main ones we'll discuss there are the employment-based, or EB, categories. EB1, EB2, EB3, EB5.
So understanding this split temporary versus permanent is kind of the foundation for planning, isn't it?
Absolutely. It helps you ask the right question. Are you looking for, say, a year or two of work experience? Or is the goal long-term life in the U.S.?
That really helps focus things. Okay, so for many grads wanting to work right away, OPT seems like the immediate next step.
It often is. Optional practical training, OPT, is basically temporary work authorization directly linked to your major.
So it's like putting your degree into practice, right? Getting that real-world experience.
Precisely. The standard period is up to 12 months.
Okay.
But there's a big potential bonus. The STEM extension.
Ah, yes, for science, technology, engineering, math fields.
Right. If your degree qualifies, you might get an extra 24 months. So that's potentially 36 months total on OPT.
Wow, 3 years. That's significant.
It really is. It's designed as that bridge, like you said.
Yep.
A chance to get your foot in the door professionally.
And you apply for this through USCIS, usually before you finish your program.
Correct. Typically before graduation. Now, OPT is super valuable as a stepping stone, maybe towards an H-1B or starting a green card process.
But there are rules you have to follow, right?
Oh, absolutely. Strict rules.
Right.
Like limits on how long you can be unemployed, and you have to keep your school's DSO, the designated school official, updated about your job.
Okay, important details. So OPT is the bridge. What's often on the other side of that bridge? The H-1B.
Very often, yes. The H-1B visa for specialty occupations.
Yeah.
It's a really common pathway for F-1 grads after OPT runs out.
Okay, H-1B. Let's break that down. It's for employers, right? U.S. employers wanting to hire foreign workers temporarily.
That's the key, employer sponsorship.
In these specialty occupations, which usually means jobs needing at least a bachelor's degree in a specific field.
Generally, yes, or the equivalent experience.
Yeah.
So the employer is basically saying, we need this specific skill set and we're sponsoring this person. You can't just, apply for an H-1B on your own.
That's critical. The employer drives it. And they have obligations too, don't
They
they?
do, big ones. They have to show they'll pay you the prevailing wage for that job in that location. Think of it as the standard market rate. And they need to attest that hiring you won't negatively affect U.S. workers in similar jobs.
Got it. Now, the big thing everyone talks about with H-1B is the limit, the cap.
The annual cap, it's a huge factor. There's a set number each year, 65,000 regular ones, plus an extra 20,000 for those with a U.S. master's degree or higher.
And demand is way higher than that, usually.
Way higher, which means...
It's a lottery.
Exactly. USCIS uses a random lottery system because there are just too many applications. It's highly competitive, very uncertain.
So even if you and your employer do everything right, you might just not get selected.
Unfortunately, yes. That's the reality. Now, if you do get it, it's initially for up to 3 years, renewable for another 3, so 6 total.
And that's where dual intent comes in.
Right. Unlike most non-immigrant visas, H-1B status allows you to pursue permanent residency, a green card, while you're still on the H-1B. That's the dual intent. You intend to stay temporarily on H-1B, but you also intend to immigrate permanently.
That's a pretty big deal, but given the lottery odds...
Yeah, the advice is always, don't put all your eggs in the H-1B basket. Explore other options at the same time.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about those other options, especially the long-term ones, the employment-based or EB green cards.
Right. These are the main routes to permanent residency based on your job skills and an offer of employment here.
And for a lot of these, specifically thinking EB2 and EB3, there's often this first step called PRRM labor certification.
Correct. PRRM labor certification. It sounds technical, and, well, it kind of is.
What's the gist of it?
Essentially, PRM is the process where your sponsoring employer has to prove to the Department of Labor, the DOL, that they tried to recruit U.S. workers for the job.
Yeah.
And couldn't find anyone qualified, available, and willing. And also, that hiring you won't hurt the wages or working conditions of similar U.S. workers.
So the employer has to, run ads, interview people?
Yes, a whole regulated recruitment effort. They also have to get a prevailing wage determination from the DOL for the role.
And then file a specific form?
Form ETA 9089, detailing the job, the recruitment, everything. It's definitely employer-sponsored. They usually bear the costs. And it can take a while.
But getting that PRM approved is generally needed before the employer can even file the next big step for an EB2 or EB3 green card, which is the I-140 petition.
Exactly. For most EB2 and EB3 cases, PRM is the necessary first hurdle.
Okay. But are there categories where you don't need PRM?
Yes. And that brings us to the EB1 category, priority workers. This one's highly sought after, precisely because it generally bypasses that whole PRM process.
Ah, okay. Faster, maybe? But probably harder to qualify for.
Definitely higher standards. Let's break it down. There are 3 subcategories. First, EB1A for extraordinary ability.
Extraordinary. That sounds intense.
It is. Think top of your field, sciences, arts, business, athletics, sustain national or international acclaim. Yeah. Major awards, publications, recognition. The really cool thing here, you can self-petition. No employer needed sometimes.
Wow. Okay. So if you're truly exceptional, that's an option. What's next?
Then there's EB1B. This is for outstanding professors and researchers.
Okay.
Requires international recognition for your academic work, at least 3 years of experience in teaching or research. But for this one, you do need a permanent job offer.
From a university or a research institution?
Correct. A university or a private employer with a documented research department.
Got it. And the third EB1 type?
EB1C. Multinational managers or executives.
This sounds like for people transferring within a company.
Exactly. You need to have worked for a related company abroad for at least 1 year in the last 3 in a managerial or executive role. And you're coming to the U.S. to do a similar high-level job for the same employer group. Requires that job offer from the U.S. entity.
Okay, so EB1, high bar, potentially faster, no PRM needed usually. What about the next level down, EB2?
Right, EB2. This is generally for professionals holding advanced degrees or those who can show exceptional ability.
So typically needs a job offer, and that PRM process we talked about.
Generally, yes. Qualification usually comes through either having an advanced degree, think master's, PhD, or a foreign equivalent.
Okay.
Or you could qualify with a bachelor's degree plus 5 years of progressive work experience after getting that degree.
Progressive meaning increasing responsibility.
Yeah, something beyond entry level. And then there's the exceptional ability path within EB2. This means proving expertise significantly above the norm in sciences, arts, or business. Still usually needs PRM.
Usually. But you hinted there's an exception.
Ah, yes. The big one for EB2. The National Interest Waiver, or NIW.
NIW. Okay, this sounds interesting. It waives what exactly?
It can potentially waive both the job offer requirement and the PRM labor certification requirement.
Whoa. Okay, how does that work? No job offer needed, no PRM.
Basically, yes. If you meet the underlying EB2 criteria, advanced degree or exceptional ability, you can petition for yourself. You don't need an employer sponsor.
Self-petition. That's huge.
It is. But you have to prove 3 key things. First, that your proposed work, your endeavor, has substantial merit and national importance.
National importance, like benefiting the U.S. broadly.
Yes. Think advancements in science, health, technology, culture, entrepreneurship that benefit the country. Second, you have to show you're well-positioned to actually advance this endeavor. You have the skills, the track record, the plan.
Makes sense. You need to be credible.
Right. And third, you have to argue that, on balance, it would be beneficial to the United States to waive the usual job offer and PRM requirements for you.
So you're essentially saying, my work is so important and I'm so capable of doing it that it's in the U.S. interest to skip the usual employer hurdles.
That's a pretty good summary. It's especially attractive for, say, entrepreneurs, researchers with groundbreaking work, scientists, artists whose contributions don't fit a standard job description.
I can see why. So what kind of proof do they look for?
Well, there's a framework from a case called Matter of Dinosaur that guides it. It looks at those three prongs: substantial merit national importance, being well-positioned, and the benefit of the waiver. Proving it takes significant evidence, detailed documentation about your work, its impact, your qualifications, letters of support. It requires a strong argument.
Definitely sounds like something needing careful preparation. Okay, so EB1, EB2, what if someone doesn't quite fit those? There's EB3.
Exactly. EB3 covers skilled workers, professionals, and a category called other workers. It's generally broader than EB1 or EB2.
Still needs a job offer and PRM, though.
Typically, yes. The main requirement is a full-time permanent job offer and that approved PRM certification.
And those subcategories, skilled workers, professionals, other workers, what's the difference?
It's mostly about the job requirements. Skilled workers are for jobs needing at least 2 years of training or experience. Professionals usually require a U.S. bachelor's degree or foreign equivalent for the role. And other workers, sometimes called unskilled labor, is for jobs requiring less than 2 years of training or experience.
So it covers a wider range of jobs. Is it generally employer-driven?
Very much so. Relies heavily on the employer getting that PRM approval. And one thing to be aware of with EB3, especially for the other workers category and for people from certain high-demand countries, is backlogs.
Meaning longer waiting times for the green card?
Potentially much longer, yes.
Yeah.
Due to annual limits per country and per category, sometimes years.
Right. Something important to factor in. Okay, we've covered the main employment routes. Are there other major paths, maybe for people with capital to invest?
Yes, definitely. There are investor visas, two main ones to touch on: the E2 Treaty Investor Visa and the EB5 Immigrant Investor Program.
Okay, let's start with E2. What's the key thing there?
The absolute key thing. E2 is a non-immigrant visa. It does not directly lead to a green card.
Okay. Good distinction. Who qualifies?
You have to be a national of a country that has a specific commerce and navigation treaty with the U.S. Not all countries do.
And you have to invest.
Yes. You need to invest a substantial amount of capital in a real operating U.S. business. And crucially, you must be coming to develop and direct that business.
What counts as substantial? Is there a minimum dollar amount?
There's no hard number in the law, which is interesting. It needs to be enough to make the business likely to succeed, and it has to be substantial relative to the total cost of the business. You can't just invest a tiny fraction.
So more than just a passive investment, you have to run it.
Pretty much. Usually means owning at least 50% or having clear operational control. And because it's non-immigrant, you need to maintain the intent to eventually leave the U.S. when your status ends, though it can often be renewed for long periods as long as the business runs.
So live and work while the business operates, but no direct path to permanent stay.
Correct. Now contrast that with the ED5 program.
This one is for a green card, right?
Yes. EB5 is an immigrant visa program. It's specifically designed to grant permanent residency to foreign nationals who invest a significant amount of money in a new commercial enterprise in the U.S.
Okay, a new business.
That creates at least 10 full-time jobs for U.S. workers.
10 jobs. That sounds like a major requirement. What about the investment amount?
It's significant. Currently, the standard minimum is $1,050,000.
Wow.
Or it could be $800,000 if the investment is made in a targeted employment area, or TEA, basically a rural area, or one with high unemployment. But keep in mind, these amounts can and sometimes do change.
Right. And the investment has to be in a new commercial enterprise.
Yes. Usually meaning established after late 1990 or significantly restructured or expanded if it's older. And the job creation, 10 full-time U.S. jobs, is critical, usually within about 2 years.
Can you invest directly, like start your own company? Or are there other ways?
Both. You can make a direct investment, manage your own qualifying business. Or many people invest through USCIS-approved regional centers. These centers pool money from multiple EB5 investors for larger projects.
And what's the outcome? You get a green card right away.
Almost. You first get conditional permanent residency for 2 years, meaning temporary. Near the end of those 2 years, you have to file another petition to remove the conditions. That's when you prove you actually made the investment as planned and created, or preserved in some cases, the required 10 jobs. If that's approved, then you get the standard permanent green card.
Okay, that's quite a process too. Wow. OPT, H-1B, EB-1, 2, 3, NIW, E-2, EB-5. There are definitely options, but goodness, it sounds incredibly complex to navigate all this.
It really is. The U.S. immigration system is notoriously intricate. Overlapping rules, strict deadlines, constant policy shifts. Trying to figure it out alone, especially right after graduating. It's risky.
What kind of risks are we talking about?
Well, each path has very specific eligibility criteria, demanding tons of precise documentation. Simple mistakes, missing information, they can lead to long delays, outright denials, or even, put your current status in jeopardy.
For just missing one form or checking the wrong box could derail things.
Potentially, yes. It can be that sensitive.
Which really brings us to the value of getting help, like from an experienced immigration attorney.
Absolutely. An experienced attorney is invaluable here. They can properly assess your whole situation, your background, your degree, your goals, and recommend the best paths for you. Not just one option, but maybe a short-term and long-term strategy.
Considering things like processing times and potential law changes.
Exactly. They stay on top of that. And crucially, they help prepare the applications accurately, thoroughly, strategically, maximizing your chances of approval.
And dealing with the government agencies?
Yes. They handle communications with USCIS, the Department of Labor, consulates, respond to requests for evidence, navigate any issues that come up. It takes a huge burden off you.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. For all of you F1 students listening, graduating is huge and it opens doors. But staying here involves understanding these pathways we've discussed.
Getting a handle on the options, the temporary ones like OPT and H-1B, the permanent EB green cards, maybe investor visas, that's really the essential first step for planning what comes next.
It sounds like planning ahead, really understanding your eligibility, the timing, the paperwork needed for each option. That's critical.
It really is. Proactive planning is key. Think strategically about how these visas might connect. Can OPT lead to H-1B? Can H-1B or OPT time help build a case for an EB green card later?
It's good to remember, though, that lots of international students do successfully navigate all this every year. They build amazing careers and lives here.
That's absolutely true. It's definitely achievable.
But given the sheer complexity and what's at stake, getting professional advice seems like a really smart move.
We strongly recommend it. Talking to a qualified, experienced immigration attorney who could look at your specific situation, that's probably the best investment you can make in figuring out this post-graduation journey effectively.
Agreed. Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with. Thinking about everything we've just explored, all these different routes, which one, maybe just gut feeling right now, seems like it might align best with your long-term goals here in the U.S. Maybe take a little time after this, start looking into the specific requirements for that path. It's your future, after all. Take that first informed step.